I think every market has its way of making money. For example, LA is great for flipping because there's, you can force appreciation and, prices, are high and you can make those spreads, but it's not the best for being a landlord and like keeping property and cash flowing because it's very tenant friendly. And so I think it just depends on your market, but, just focus on being around other people that are having success within your market, your niche, because, there's riches and niches, as they say. I think there's a reason they say that. My niche has been LA County. Every time I've gone outside of the county and outside of the strategy of like single family, small multifamily, I've gotten into trouble. So I think you just like lock in on what you do great and don't get distracted by all these other things that may be lucrative, but you've already proven to be this for you to work, then just lock in.
The David Golshan Podcast.
All right. I'm here with my main man, Alex, the deal maker Camacho. How are you? Thank you so much for being here.
Wonderful, Dave. Thanks for having me. It's an honor, man, to sit down and talk to you about business and a bunch of other things.
Thank you so much. Let's do a toast here again one more time.
Toast.
Thank you so much for being here. So, Alex, I met you in San Diego at this event, Rich Summers event, and you were talking so much about how you're passionate about real estate and all these different ways of making money in real estate, flipping, holding, just all like the different things you were doing using social media. How did you get started in real estate, and what is it that you're working on? And give us like a little bit of a background about you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dave. Yeah, we met at that rooftop in San Diego meetup. I think it was the second time that I'd gone there. I was there with my brother, and the dude, you stood out as one of those kind of people who just had great personality.
What's your brother's name?
His name is George.
George, okay.
Yeah, so
awesome.
he met you and I met you like separately within that meetup. And then I started to see you on social media and some of your stuff you were working on. But yeah, it was great. Whenever I go to those events, really, a couple people stand out, and you were definitely one of those people. And I got started in real estate, though, as a realtor.
And it wasn't because I was drunk or anything. It had to do with like...
it was just, just your personality.
Real
and then
estate.
we talked about some things, and it seemed like, you had some experience. And you are also from LA, so it was San Diego event, but I'm from LA. So
you're based in LA right now. You lived in Mexico, right? Were you born in Mexico?
My parents immigrated from Mexico.
Okay. Were you born in Mexico?
No, I was born in San Diego.
Okay.
Yeah, actually.
Nice.
But we grew up in LA. I often tell my parents, like, why the hell we didn't stay in San Diego? It's a beautiful city. They're like, well, our friends were in LA. So yeah, my parents immigrated. We landed in LA. I was born in San Diego, though. And then just grew up in, humble beginnings. And then I got into banking after high school. That was a great experience. But there's not that much income you can make.
What'd you do in banking?
So I was just bank teller, and then I went to new accounts, and then I went into I was doing some home equity lines of credit, and then also some like annuities and things like that for the bank. So I learned a lot during that time. But
so you've seen the financing side.
Yeah, but you have a ceiling, and when it comes to working for big institutions like that, typically, and so I didn't like that. I went off into the mortgage business, did that for some years, and I did really, really well during that time. But then the market crashed, and then so I was making a lot of money, and then I wasn't making any money. And then I got into the real estate side, became a realtor. Okay. So that's kind of how I got into real estate investing, where I was a realtor during some time that there was a lot of distress in the market. You had a lot of people that were kind of going through this foreclosure situations, 2008, 9, 10. And I was an agent at the time. And I remember seeing that the majority of my transactions were to real estate investors. And they were flipping property here in LA. And I started to do the math and realized that they were making like 10 times what I was making. And I'm making 10 grand, they're making 100 grand. And that was the little seed planting in my head.
You were giving them the loans?
Well, no, at that time, I was a realtor. So I was negotiating, finding listings of distressed property because a lot of it was out there. And then most of my clients were investors that were flipping the properties.
So you went from financing loans to becoming a realtor.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And then you saw you're like, hey, wait a second, what the fuck? I'm making 6% commission or 3% commission, and then they're making, once they fix this place up, they're gonna make
100 grand. Yeah, exactly. So it's like 10 grand or 100 grand, and I felt like my job was equally as difficult given the circumstances, and because you had to negotiate with the bank on these short sales and these tricky deals for months at a time. Anyways, that was the seed that was planted. I got lured back into the mortgage business a little bit through some buddy of mine. Didn't work out the way I expected it, but certainly got some experience there. And then I started doing some Airbnb arbitrage. I don't know if you know what that is, but
that's my thing.
okay, I did that for a couple of years.
Unfortunately, I know exactly how that is. Yeah. Don't get me started on Airbnb arbitrage.
We're gonna talk about
Yeah.
that. It's so
Lord.
and
God, I love Jesus.
yes. And so,
Give me the strength to talk about
I'm talking
Airbnb.
2015,
Okay.
16. So it was before the regulations in LA. So we were able to have some consistent income, get some experience of that. But then that really gave me the kind of the stepping stone that I needed to get into the flipping side, because I had that in my mind. I was like, yo, I think I could be a great investor, flipper. And then if I do make a lot of money, I think I could keep some of these properties.
So please tell me, let's just go back 1 second. Please tell me how you went from Airbnb arbitrage to buying the homes. Because a lot of our listeners are wanting to make that transition.
Yes, of course.
A lot of our followers are doing Airbnb arbitrage, or they're involved in Airbnb in somehow, but they want to move on into aspects of real estate where they don't have to work 24 hours a day and make some serious money.
Yeah, of course. No, well, the reason that I wanted to move into the acquisition side was, one, I had that experience where the people were making so much money, but two, because it felt like I was shaking ground. Like at any time I they could cut the lease out or do something where I wouldn't be able to make the same amount of money anymore. So I realized, since I don't own this property, I really need to own this real estate. I mean, that's just my reasoning to everything.
How long did you do the arbitrage for?
2.5 years, 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had 10 units. They were mainly in Hollywood. And then, like I said, great experience, but it provided that income that allowed me to go work for a real estate investor without having to really make money. Because I was going to learn from him, because he was flipping like 20 houses a year, doing what I'm doing now, where he keep the best ones and he'll just flip the rest to make a lot of money.
Okay.
And then he just had his business model that was like less than 10 people working with him, boutique firm. And so I just went and learned from this other investor. I literally got a job on Craigslist, Dave. I went on there, I'm like, you know what? I'm overqualified, but I'm gonna find a job working for an investor so I could learn how you flip real estate. Because it's different, even though I had experience, right, with
What year was this?
This was 2016, turning to 17.
Okay. So actually like pretty recently.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I went to go work for that guy, and I was just basically a cold caller, pounding the phone, getting beat up, every curse word you could imagine, and all the things that happen, calling property owners all over LA.
Hi, are you interested in selling your house? What? Go fuck myself. Yeah, so it's like a lot of that. Yeah, there's a lot of that. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so
I get those calls, but like now it's like AI.
You're right. I mean, fucking, they're eliminating all those people too.
And they usually give me like the wrong address. They're like, are you the owner of like 757 3rd Street? I'm like, no, never heard of it.
Yeah, I mean, dude, there's robocallers and there's so much of that going on now.
Okay, no, sorry,
dude, like I hit the phones hard.
Okay.
I learned how to, basically get opportunities for him and then close deals across that about a year and a half. Because, at the time, like I didn't have that much money, but I had this high desire of like, I'm going to get into becoming a full-time real estate investor flipper. And it's going to be my job to actually own and buy and transact in real estate. Not the realtor side, because I had been on that side. I was like, I don't want to be that. Because a lot of my followers they were realtors, or they are realtors, and they're trying to actually become real estate investors. Okay. So he did hide a lot of stuff from me. Like, he didn't want me to know how he was getting the hard money loans. He didn't want me to know how all the details of the rehab worked. So he didn't want me to know how much money he was making.
What information would he give you? Like, would he just give you like leads of
names? Just teaching me on how to secure the deal. Nothing else. Everything else he was trying to hide from me, so that way I wouldn't learn how much he was making.
Cold calling?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so would he tell you who to call? Or
he would give a list of leads. We would be on an automatic dialer, or these dialers that you're calling 300, 500 people a day, just like 5 lines at once.
So what did you learn from him?
Well, I learned how to negotiate with sellers, and how to pitch transactions and how to be able to find people that are truly, truly motivated. Like in marketing, we call it like bleeding neck, right? Like they're like literally, if you had a bleeding leg, you were gonna go right to the hospital. You're not gonna go try to negotiate with a doctor of like, hey, how do you fix this? Like, you're gonna do that. And so in marketing, in business, that's what you're looking for. So I learned how people would get into situations where they really had to sell this property to an investor in no other way. and then learn how to negotiate with those people. And that skill set was worth millions of dollars.
Oh,
so
wow.
it was worth it.
Oh, wow.
And it took some time working for him, and then I ended up working for another company, which was a different experience, but he had nothing else to teach me. So I moved on after about a year with that guy.
Okay. And then what did you do after him?
Well, right after that, I got recruited because at the time I was only making like 60, 70,000 a year, and I'm helping this guy make like 10 times that. So I increased my value. He didn't want to pay me more. So guess what? I went and found another job for a company that had way more capital, and they were buying way more houses, and they were buying them at not as much of a discount because they were buying volume.
And what were you doing for him?
I was an acquisitions manager.
Okay.
Which is a title of just professional deal getter, right? You're just
so
going
what was it like? What like is that the same thing? Like go and call people who may have a house to sell, or like?
Well,
can you like
no,
give me an example?
Not necessarily, because think about the business of acquiring and flipping real estate. There's many different ways to actually get deals, and so their specialty was, since they had so much capital to deploy. I mean, I'm telling you, this firm had $75 million of capital to be buying houses like a machine.
Like, what's an example of like a deal that you would do, just so we can?
So I'd make, let's say, 20 offers in a week on MLS listings here in LA.
For what, like regular houses?
For fixer-upper houses.
Okay, so you call and say, hey, I see your house is on the MLS for $700,000. No one's bought it, right?
No, these are typically properties that there's a lot of attention because they're fixer-uppers in LA. Because remember, LA is so large. There's Compton, there's East LA, there's Pacoima. So many parts of Southern California are not Beverly Hills, okay? So these are entry-level, working-class neighborhoods, and so we were making offers on those properties.
I've never left Beverly Hills.
I know, bro. You
trying to figure
bubble here,
yeah,
brother?
I've heard of these other things. Compton, I know.
Okay.
No, but,
I love Compton, by the way. It's made me a lot of money. But so sure enough, man, yeah, we just like make offers, kind of more of a volume thing. Where before I was calling people, right? I was like cold calling people directly to homeowners and trying to find people that are motivated. This time I was actually calling agents like, hey, we have, a lot of capital. We want to buy, 5 houses this month. And so it was a kind of a different, but I learned because I bought volume with them.
So you would call agents and say, I want to buy the fixer-upper that you're listing.
Mm-hmm.
And would you offer cash?
Absolutely.
You would?
Yeah. And it was on behalf of that investor I was working for.
Okay, so would you offer usually and get it at under market value?
Yeah.
Under the MLS price?
Well, think about it this way, like it's subjective to what your advantages in a real estate transactions are. So if you have a crew full-time working for you remodeling houses, you can rehab that house less expensive than someone else. And so also the amount of capital you have available, if you have a lot of capital and it's not that much of a, that's not a high price, we'll say, then you also maybe have an advantage. So our advantage was we had an active crew that was full-time that could get us rehabs for less. And we also had a lot of capital to deploy. And so it was really a flipping, like a machine that I was working for. And so that enabled me to learn what that model looked like, because it was different than the other guy. He was just buying, 20 houses a year. They were buying 20 a month.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it was more systems, more processes, more personnel. And I got to learn, at a real high scale, flipping looks like that.
What made you successful, and, what type of money are we talking about in that business, where you went to like somebody who's buying, a lot of houses, and you're like, were you on a commission basis?
So I have a small salary plus commission. So I was making 6 figures, like $150,000, $200,000 a year, not using any of my capital, but I was learning and making relationships too, and saving money for me to eventually do it on my own.
And like, what was it that you brought to the table? Because couldn't he just get somebody without experience to call and make deals?
No, because this was a firm, so they recruited me specifically for that job to help them buy, in acquisitions, because they saw, their business model revolved around buying houses at auction, a trustee sale, right? And then that was dwindling, so they had to beef up, their other departments, which is like, hey, go buy houses from realtors, go buy houses from, what we call wholesalers in the business. And so we were much more of a cash buyer with a lot of liquidity. And so it was a different business model.
Were you choosing the houses to buy?
Yeah, they give us a business model like, hey, try to buy this price point in these areas, and these other areas we're not that interested in, but if it's a home run deal, we'll look at it.
So you'd find the house.
So I was analyzing deals. I was looking at houses all weekend long, or,
You'd find the house that you wanted for the company, you'd analyze it, and you'd make an offer, and if they accepted, then you would bring it to the boss?
Sometimes it was a process. Sometimes I needed their approval to make a heavy-handed offer on a property I had already been working on. Other times I knew what they wanted to buy specifically, and I would just like package in like, this is what we're buying, and it fits all the boxes that they wanted. Okay, cool, we're buying it. But it graduated to that because at the beginning was we had to have that, that I guess that learning curve of us kind of working together. And then, okay, Alex knows what we want to buy. But I was in office most of the time. So, I was around them all the time. And they were buying 5-10 houses a month within a stone's throw away from me in the other office. So we'd be talking about deals all day long.
So is that a good business to get into, like what you did, acquisition for these other companies?
Well, I think it allowed me, it was building a skill set to then go off and be able to do it for myself and then make a lot more money and be able to keep properties. So about 2.5 years working for those two companies, I saved enough money and learned enough to go start acquiring properties on my own and doing it for myself.
Okay, so you were making like a couple $100,000.
So a couple $100,000, yeah, exactly.
For this company.
For that company,
right?
That's 2019.
Going out there, finding houses. Mm-hmm. It was all houses, right?
It was all single family houses in LA County.
So you're finding houses, analyzing them, telling like the owner, hey, I think this is a good deal.
Yep.
And then finally you're like, all right, you know what? I'll just do this for myself.
I mean, they didn't want to elevate me in the business. So I was like, hell no, if you're not going to give me more and more money, I've helped you buy so many houses, make so much money. It just,
people can still go, like if you're good at this, but you don't want to like put up your own money, people can still go out there. There's companies like this where you can go become like an acquisition person and learn the business. And still make like a couple $100,000.
One of the guys that I used to work with still works for the same company. So, some people don't want to go off and be the CEO and the owner of the business. They're okay making
Some people are not like entrepreneur minded.
That's fine, but that wasn't my mindset. I felt like, hey, at the end of the day, I know what I'm doing. I have enough money. I had a couple $100,000. I was like, I'm ready to do this for myself
so
and
what
make way more
next?
money. So I ended up starting to acquire property of my own. Make more money. I was able to keep some rentals because of where I was headed. I went to Hawaii. I had a mentorship, somebody that I got close to in real estate that was, very famous podcaster and somebody that I looked up to a lot. And he opened the doors for me to go to Maui, Hawaii during the pandemic. So I ended up moving there, flipping houses in LA while living in Hawaii.
Oh, nice. Look at you.
So it was a great transition to do that. It had its challenges.
What was the situation with that? Was it like a paid mentorship?
Well, first it was more of like kind of a friendship, and then he had events going on like on an annual basis, so I'd participate and invest in those. I mean, they were $5,000 to $7,000, but they were worth every dollar because I get to meet a bunch of other entrepreneurs, successful people like yourself.
And you were working remotely while attending like his events?
So I was living in Hawaii, and I was flipping like half a dozen or so houses at a time in LA, and then I would only fly to LA maybe once a quarter to check on stuff.
You're doing kind of like the digital nomad life. Like,
sort of, yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get.
We call it, location independence.
Yeah.
So when you're able to make money in one place, but then be in whatever place you want to be.
Nice.
So yeah, I was able to do that.
And then, so what happened after that?
I noticed that I got a little bit lonely in Maui. I was a single guy. We're making some money. Doing some things, and Maui single life was just challenging.
You're a good-looking guy. You know how to talk to women. Like,
yeah, but
you were tired of like dating like hot Hawaiian women, or what?
I'll be honest with you. I mean, and this is no offense to like Hawaii or anything like that, but I just did not see like the amount of talent I would see in LA or in Mexico. So as a single man, I was like, and so. A lot of the people a lot of the beautiful women were like on Oahu because like there's more people. It's just a numbers game. And so I began to kind of travel a little bit more, and then I ended up in Mexico because I have family there, and my parents immigrated from there. And so I went to Guadalajara and I started living kind of a dual lifestyle. So I was living in Guadalajara, Mexico, and Maui, Hawaii, and then just going back and forth while I was going to LA for business. But just staying there just short periods of time.
How were you making money at this time? Now
flipping real estate in LA.
Flipping real estate in LA.
Yeah. So I had a team members. I had the processes in place.
Wow.
So we were flipping like 10 plus houses at a time.
What year is this?
2021, 22.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 20.
And like on average, like how much would you make like per flip?
On average, we were making about 70 to 100,000 per flip.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah. I mean, the ones in Palmdale and Lancaster, which were smaller amounts, were typically 40, 50,000. But we wouldn't really touch a deal because, we're tying up capital. It takes 6 months of really hard work. That's just from A to Z. But there's even work beforehand and afterwards, and so it has to be really worth it. So I got into business to make millions of dollars.
Did you see anything green in Palmdale or Lancaster? Like every time I go there, it's all brown and dirty.
Well, there are parks.
Okay. The parks have grass?
They do. They do.
Okay,
The green.
good. Well, that's good. Yeah,
some
it's
of
an
those parks
improvement.
are.
It's an
Yeah.
improvement.
But yeah, there's a thriving real estate community out there. There's a lot of people that call it home and commute into like LA and all that stuff. So one of those things that in business you got to pay attention to working. And so every deal that I did in Palmdale and Lancaster, I didn't lose money. I used it as capital. The houses are kind of newer out there. So I was like, hey man, let's keep on investing out here because they were just like lucrative and kind of safe, a safe bet.
What is it about you that makes you so successful in finding these flips? I know like you've kind of like moved on now, right? Do you still do flips?
Yeah, so I still flip,
Okay.
but my main objective now is to kind of rebound from I had invested in a multifamily apartment building in Phoenix, and it just kicked me in the ass for a couple of years. Lost some money, and I'm still paying back some investors from that. Kind of change in the market. But LA has always been good to me, so I'm back here in LA.
So like
we're
if
still
somebody
flipping.
if somebody invests with you
Mhm.
and the deal goes south, you'll still pay them
Yeah,
back?
they always get paid back.
They
It's
get
just
paid back.
in this occasion, because the 18-unit apartment building was much longer time frame, we didn't expect it to change so much that we're kind of still having to clean things up with them on that. But for the single family houses, that never happened. It was just market conditions, all these things that happened and kind of worked against us that really, it just in entrepreneurship, it's ups and downs. And that was certainly one of our downs. But
But
LA,
they're gonna get paid back.
yeah, 100%. Yeah. So we have to make things right with them. They just have to understand there's a timing on that because I had actually ended up losing a lot of my money. So it's like, okay, well, I'm flipping these other houses. Let me pay you back for these houses that we're flipping. And so they're understanding with that. Yeah.
That's like if
Yeah.
I ever raise money, I'm gonna do that too. I'm basically gonna say I'm gonna put a something in the contract that says if you lose money on this deal or something happens, I'll come out of my pocket
Yeah.
and
That's exactly what I done. I sold actually
Yeah.
like 5+ properties that I didn't want to sell because to pay everybody back.
Wow.
I was like, so
That's amazing.
So it was definitely
That's
one of those
amazing.
learning lessons where it was like the property in Maui, a property in Hollywood, a couple in the Palmdale, Lancaster that would just I
Okay.
liquidated
Sold those.
and sold those. Yeah, I paid back my investors. So it's one of those things. It's part of business, ups and downs, and for the most
Okay.
people, for the most part, everybody understands this. But nobody's happy about it. Certainly not me having put in this work and then like lose my money. But I realized it also helped me stay focused on what I do best, which is like you have to once you have success. I think stay in your lane. That was one of my learning lessons from that challenge and that loss there in Phoenix was that.
How did you get out of your lane?
Well, my thing was always LA County.
Okay.
I know it like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
And so I think out of 100+ real estate deals, investment deals that I've worked on, some for investors, half and half from myself, I've only lost like once or twice in LA in the house. Whereas, this thing in Phoenix, like we lost big on it because it was outside of my core capacity.
What went wrong?
Well, one is that in commercial real estate, you're dealing with bigger stakes. So I had a hard, what do you call a hard earnest deposit, and so this was almost 200 grand where, if I backed out a deal and the financing was ready to go, everything was kind of green light ahead, mentors, agents, everybody that was involved in the transaction. So it wasn't easy to kind of back out of that at that time. And so at the time I had the team members in place. Well, within 6 months, the market shifted. Those team members weren't in place anymore. They either quit or, times get difficult. People end up kind of quitting. And then the city of Phoenix ended up coming in and laying a heavy hand and red tag. Even though we had pulled permits, there was just all this like red tape of, okay, this is like unpermitted. And we just went through this constant.
It was a multifamily?
Yeah, it was a multifamily building. And so we had to go through that fiasco with multiple architects. And then the market, I mean, in Phoenix, it's a wonderful city, bro, but it's highs and lows. I mean, we're talking about the property value swung by 40% inside of a year
God.
without me doing a thing.
I have an arbitrage deal in Phoenix. We try to
So
do
let me have a drink to that because it was hard to stomach,
Yeah.
and then that's part of the reason we weren't able to recover from that because it's like that wouldn't have happened in Los Angeles. You know?
Yeah. I mean, you learn from it. You learn from
So
the
got outside my
struggle.
lane and I got kicked in the ass and lost a lot of money for doing so. So LA County is my bread and butter. I'm gonna stick to what I know and make millions of dollars again doing what I know.
So did you learn did you lose the earnest money? Was that the problem?
No, I ended up closing on a transaction, and then there was huge liquidity demands along the way that were not expected.
All right, brother. We got a little malfunction there, but we're back now. We're talking about Phoenix.
Yeah, we're talking about like how it went wrong, and so what ended up happening with the deal was there was multiple parts that turned south. Like first of all, the loan broker changed the cash to closing like last minute. So it's normal for it to vary and say, hey, you have to come to the table with X amount of dollars to close on this property, or X amount of dollars. It can change by let's call it 50 to 100 grand. But in this case, he changed the cash to close by 200,000. Went from like 700,000 to 850 to $1,050,000 inside last week of closing on the property. So then I was forced to actually put more money into the deal, right off jump. And that actually took liquidity out of my bank account that I needed to also, finish up some projects I was working on in LA because I had 15 other houses I was flipping at that time.
Okay.
So, that kind of change in liquidity can, make a big difference. And then after that, we weren't actually getting the rents we projected. So just call it that we were renting the properties out $1,000 a piece, expected to get $1,500 once we did a renovation on the units. Well, Phoenix changes quickly, and so instead of $1,500, we were having a hard time even getting $1,250, $1,300 for rents of these properties. So that was another big issue.
Oh wow! So it just went down after you started.
And then at year one, the lender comes to us and says, "Hey, we had to recapitalize the
Who
loan."
does?
The lender, the bridge lender that gave us the $3 million to buy the building, and they say, "Hey, guess what, big boy? We're gonna need to recapitalize the loan." That's a fancy word saying
Why?
we're gonna have to adjust the risk that we have on this loan.
After they've already given you the loan?
Correct. And commercial real estate and loans, it works differently. And they forced us to either put us into foreclosure, even though we're on time with payments and everything of the sort.
Wow.
Maturing the loan, it's called, or recapitalize the loan and give us $500,000 more.
So how does it work with a commercial loan? Even though you already got the loan, was it a fixed rate?
No, it's very common for this type of investment to be a short-term variable rate, where just you're only fixed in there for a year, 2 years, 3 years time, and then after that, because the whole goal is for you to go in, renovate, do whatever you need to value add, and then be able to refinance out of that debt into better debt, or to sell the asset, for a profit. Which is,
I see.
Yeah, so that was the whole purpose of the loan. It was never like, okay, to have a 30-year fixed loan on it, because that wasn't type of investment play. Yeah.
But you had fixed it up and you had rented it out.
Yeah, but we were having a tough time getting the rent bumps that we expected.
And that's why they came. They're like,
the market has changed in a year. We're not done with the project. Give us another $500,000, or we're gonna foreclose on you. And I'm like, what? And so after heavy negotiations for a couple months, I gave them $250,000, and they put the other lien on one of my properties that had equity. And so they choked me out on more liquidity after a year, which they had already gotten from the down payment difference from the broker. And so that was another big hit to us, where it was like, oh, this is even less cash working with. And so all these things did not work in our favor. And then the city came and red tagged us because they said we didn't permit some of these things that we're doing.
Oh, man.
So there was just a series of things that happened. Thankfully, I'll spare the audience the drama. What I learned was staying in your lane, work with only qualified, very experienced people that you've highly vetted, and then don't get overextended, over leveraged.
Oh man!
And that was the three big lessons I took away from it. Was like, hey, I should have worked with more experienced, more vetted people. Even though I did work with people that were experienced, I mean, I needed a higher level experience for this type of play. Yeah, okay. And then also I wasn't able to execute, and there was a lot of opportunity costs. So that's something that I think people don't talk about enough. When you're saying yes to one project or one business or one thing you're giving your focus onto, you can't do that with something else, right?
Yeah.
And so these 2.5 years, I haven't been able to be as lucrative, or as profitable in LA, because I've been dealing with this thing. Now I'm like, okay, let me go back to business. That's why we
Are you done with this thing now?
Yeah. So we sold the building about a month ago. And since then, I've been already working full-time on real estate stuff in LA. And so things are moving full speed ahead. It'll probably take me a little bit, 6 months to a year, to kind of recoup some of this, this opportunity cost. But I'm seeing some other opportunities that weren't happening in LA before, like some ADUs. I don't know if you've come across that. We're in California, so it's very common. And so that's become a very doable strategy now.
Accessory dwelling units.
So I'm working on some of those now too.
I heard that's big on if you already have a house for just like regular homeowners. If you already have, or even investors, if you have a house in a area that gets a lot of money per square footage.
Correct. No, you said it right there perfectly, exactly. Based on building costs in California and rental prices in California, if you're able to add a unit for, say, $300,000, but then you could rent that out for $4,000, that's good return on investment.
Oh, yeah.
So whether you're a homeowner, you want to add a unit, or you're an investor now and that you actually buy the property certain price, add the second unit, and then flip that property. I'm seeing that happen now, and I'm working on that as well.
And then you get the appreciation too.
Yeah.
On the land, right?
Exactly.
You can rent it out or get the appreciation. But does something like this work like in a low pricing area, like like the Coachella Valley, or
not necessarily
really?
Because you're spending the same amount of money typically to build. And so if you're spending, right now it's between, we're filming this in the second quarter now of 2025, and our building brand new structures cost is about $200 to $250 per square foot here in California. And so if you're gonna spend that, you really wanna have that delta of like, okay, after it's done, that in that area, it's going for $700, $800, $1,000 per square foot. If it's too close to the building cost, then it doesn't make as much sense.
Now, can you get prefabs, like a prefabricated ADU, and still have that?
I'm seeing that, but I'm not seeing that at scale, because then there's a lot of contradiction with some of the regulations and what some of the government and state want to see. And so I've seen it talked about a lot, but in execution, I haven't seen it much.
I've seen like that a lot in glamping. Like I'm trying to pivot into glamping and get into glamping. I've been looking for a glamping place to build like a micro resort now for over 3 years. Okay. And I've been in escrow in four different occasions and fell out of escrow for like one reason or another. And I've seen a lot of great tiny homes that can be bought, and you put it on a foundation. But we don't know if that's going to add appreciation to the land or not, because it's a prefab. And unless you really go to your county and you talk to an appraiser.
And so you're, in many respects, like people are kind of pioneers doing that. And I highly respect them on that. And I think it does have its...
There's so many amazing
upside.
ADUs.
Yeah, you can do that. I recently came across this modular home builder that's doing it at scale over here in Mid-City. And we had a great meeting, and he educated me on how they're even doing small multifamily and some commercial buildings with this modular style of like these steel type of like, I forgot what the name of the term was, but it's a modular home. And they build the walls and the panels and
are you gonna do that, or you do like
no, I just
ground up?
It was just great to see that alternative happening, and then being built here in LA, and then obviously they're doing deals across the nation now.
So if we're gonna do ADU, we should look at both.
Mm-hmm.
We should see if you buy something modular, prefab, if it's going to actually add appreciation or not. Talk to an
exactly,
appraiser,
because it might not be that expensive, but then you might not get the upside and appreciation on the property.
We don't want it like considered like a trailer. We want it to be like real square footage.
Exactly, and I say that's where you get into tricky space of like, do your own research.
Okay, so bottom line now, how do we make money in this game based on what you're doing?
Oh, well,
you're still doing flips?
Yeah, bottom line thing I think is you find your lane within real estate or business that you it calls you, that you feel like it'd be something that you could do something long term. Because I just don't think there's a such thing as getting rich quick. It just doesn't exist. And so for me, that's been real estate, and then acquisitions of real estate is my flow. And so I'm constantly working on trying to acquire property and then keep it if it makes sense long term. Otherwise, flip it for a nice profit and then move on to more deals. And I'm also, obviously, I have a team behind me. So I'm constantly looking at how do I build that out a little bit more because I do want to remove myself in the future, like you, and then be more location dependent, be able to be in one place. Because I did spend a lot of time in Hawaii and Mexico, and so I love LA. It's an amazing city. However, like living here full time for me does feel a bit restrictive because I want to be, a little bit more independent.
So what are you working on now?
So right now, my focus is rebuilding my flipping company here in LA. Now, it's not only flipping, it's also wholesaling and doing real estate transactions that are more on the single-family, small multifamily within Southern California. So that'll be my core business. And then I have a side project that I'm working on. We'll call it a staffing company because I've been working with these remote workers or virtual assistants across the world, and I've seen it all. I've hired and fired 100 of them at least. And then I found a lot of passion because I'm living in Mexico and I'm seeing these talented people that are bilingual, that are very culturally the same or similar to like LA where I grew up, and I'm from Mexican immigrant family. So I'm helping them get jobs with some entrepreneurs like myself, and just kind of marrying that two together. And it is profitable, but more so it gives me open, just a constant flow of talented, affordable team members.
So what is this company? You find like VAs, like virtual assistants, like overseas for other companies?
For other small companies and for other entrepreneurs and people that are investors, wholesalers, and kind of within that niche for real estate. And then we're helping these people get like great jobs.
Are they already trained for real estate?
Yeah. So one of the requirements is that they already have experience in some facet of what they're trying to do, and so they're not just brand newbies. And so, because the entrepreneur also doesn't waste their time for months and months training people on something brand new. So we're finding the balance of both two and helping.
And how much you charge for this?
So my fee is typically $1,500 for every placement. We do offer some discounts to some of our, kind of VIPs if they're getting multiple virtual assistants. And then it is a guarantee because obviously
you'll find them. We train them.
Find them, recruit them, find them, train them, or at least make sure they have the experience necessary for that position. Because everybody has you want lead generation for real estate. Well, this guy already has experience with that, but he has experience generating leads in Texas, and then you're in Florida. So
Okay, good. And so yours are like vetted, trained, real estate.
Yeah.
They know about like acquisition, like making calls, like they do like a lot of like the nitty gritty work, I'm assuming.
Yeah. It helps give the time back to the entrepreneurs so they can focus on making money.
But I've got VAs.
You do?
I've had VAs my entire like real estate career,
Good,
like
great.
doing like Airbnb short-term rentals, but they drive me crazy.
I know, dude. That's what I say. Finding you gotta find the best ones.
I love them, but like I don't know. I'm very close to actually flying to the country and actually killing a couple of them. Okay.
I know, I feel you, brother.
I'm very close to doing that.
I had like a lot of great experience and a lot of awful experiences with them too.
Yeah,
But,
it's like where are yours from?
Mainly Mexico because I live part-time in Guadalajara, Mexico, and I see the city, I meet people, but more than anything, I found this kind of passion. Like, hey, I want to help them get jobs.
That's good.
Because there's a lot of, I just call it dead end work over there, right? They're just like, they have no future. And living off minimum wage over there in Mexico compared to living on minimum wage here in the States is a whole different ballgame. I mean, that's real poverty. So I feel like I've kind of found that passion of like, okay, let me help the entrepreneurs because I know how it is to have an awful VA or have somebody that like doesn't handle business. You got to fire them, and it's just like, oh my God, you train
I've gone
them.
through so many VAs.
Yeah.
Mine are in the Philippines though.
Okay,
Mine are in the Philippines. I think.
And I've had them in the Philippines, Thailand, all over the world, bro. But
how much are we talking for like the Mexican VAs? Like how much like American
they're typically a little bit more
per
expensive
hour?
than the Philippine VAs, to be honest. But they're bilingual in a lot of
How many US dollars is it?
They're getting paid. Admin work, ops is $5 to $10 an hour.
Okay.
But sales and lead gen are typically $10 to $15 an hour.
10 to 15 an hour.
Because they're more valuable.
And somebody in the US would charge like what, 50 an hour or more?
Oh yeah. Well, for lead gen, I think if you're in US, I mean, you'd be $30-$40 an hour, I think.
Okay.
At least.
And they'll charge like 5 to 10?
No, for lead gen, I would say it's like 10 to 15 in
10 to
Mexico.
15, but here it would be 30?
It'd be a 30 plus, yeah.
Okay.
You have a full-time telemarketer that's good in real estate, like, I mean, that'd be $30 an hour.
The thing with I've never done any country besides Philippines, so I don't know how it is. I want to try your company out. What I love about the Philippines is like Filipinos are like the sweetest, nicest. You're never gonna have any issues of like talking back, BSing, being rude. But other things like drive me absolutely crazy. Like just like I don't know what, like, there's just like some things where, like, have you ever seen like that comedy bit, Who's on Third? Abbott and Costello?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds right.
It's almost like playing like Who's on Third, like 5 days a week.
Yeah. Who's this? Who's that?
Yeah.
Like that pointy
It's
finger?
just like, I'll be like, I'll say, is the store open? And they'll say, yes, it's closed. I'm like, and I'm like, you know what? Like somebody, they'll be like amazing, and then somebody will ask like, how far are you from Disneyland? And then they'll like answer back, oh, Disneyland has like the most amazing rides and games. They're like, yeah, that's cool. How fucking far away are you?
No, and that's why I like the ones in
Lord.
Mexico more, bro,
Yeah.
because there's not that much of a cultural difference.
Yeah.
And then also, I look for VAs that actually are not just order takers. And I found that in the
Yeah.
Philippines, bro, no offense, but it just seemed like they were just like, yes, I checked the box,
Yeah.
And I was like, no, like, I need you to use critical thinking skills at
Exactly. I
times.
think that's a lot of it is that because like when you call like right now AT&T,
No common sense. you
any
know?
of these companies, when they go to like Philippines, it's like it's all about like a checklist. It's like you do this, I do that. You do the but once like any kind of like critical thinking is involved, that's like not like copy and paste or like you told me this. It just everything like go like falls
Exactly.
out.
I'm like, I'm hiring a team member, not a robot, and it feels like that on certain occasions in the VAs from the Philippines, in my experience. Nothing against them. I
It's
think
kind
they're
of like
wonderful,
yeah.
but
It's like dealing with Siri, right?
it's just kind of
if like you
get what you pay for.
Yeah,
But whereas
yeah.
my VAs, they're trying to actively improve your business and see how they can be a part of the long-term
Okay.
vision. That's not
So
the
in
same.
Mexico, like maybe they're a little bit more skilled in critical thinking.
Yeah, dude, Guadalajara
problem
is
solving.
basically
Okay.
nicknamed the Silicon Valley of Mexico, bro, because they have some of the best schools in the country. And so these are smart, educated, bilingual people that you're getting for a fraction of the cost. So to me, like for me, it's an easy sale because I hire them for myself. I wish I could hire more of them because I'm like, damn, I want more of a budget, but I don't have a much of a need for them as right now.
My
currently.
VAs are good now because
Yeah.
like they've been with me for like 5 years. They've heard me say, I'm 2 seconds away from suicide.
Yeah.
I created like a 300-page manual. I've created Loom videos.
Oh my God.
And I've had like
I loom
Yeah.
is in my mind every day. Like, how can I loom this?
And I've had like 50 conversations on like every mistake but humanly possible. So at this point, it's like there's still like little things here and there, but I think like we're good. God forbid I have to hire somebody new.
Yeah.
I might just go, to the Golden Gate Bridge and make a left-hand turn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot
Okay.
of friction points on your
Yeah.
and Airbnb arbitrage. That's what it is.
my
I think
God,
at the end of the
yeah.
day,
Anything Airbnb.
everything can go wrong. A lot of things do go wrong, and so
There's a 24/7 business. That's the thing.
it's hospitality, and so it's like running a hotel. And so you have to treat it that way and have enough appropriate staff. But I think the Philippine people do match well with that because they're very nice and welcoming. And try to get somebody from LA.
Oh my God!
Respond
I
to
tried.
people.
I tried somebody from another
From,
state,
like,
not
New York
LA.
or something.
I tried an American. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, you know what? Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have an American VA and somebody that I can talk to, and this person will be like the manager of the other VAs.
Yeah.
Right. So I hired somebody, and instead of paying like $5 an hour, I paid like 20 or 25 an hour, something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And I was like, right, this is like a lot of damn money. But if this person can be like the manager and do other things, and I just say something once and all that, no. They were good. She was really good with critical thinking, and it wasn't in California. It was like she was like in like Connecticut or something,
Okay.
or like the West Coast, the Midwest. And she's really good with like critical thinking, and she was good with like saying something once and getting it. But all the other things that the Filipinos are good with, that's she was not good.
Yep.
She couldn't take criticism. In the Philippines, like you can tell somebody, "Hey, listen, you screwed up big on this," and they'll be like, okay, sir, I'm going to fix it and make sure that it's done right
Yeah,
the next time,
yeah.
sir." With her, I'd say, "Hey, the way that you did this," and I'm like very nice, like when I talk to like anybody that works for me or anything, or just in general.
Yeah.
I said, "Hey, the way you did this here is not right. You got to do it this way." And then 2 days later, she messed up again on something else, and I was like, on this one as well. It's got to be done this way. And then she writes back, you know, in the Philippines, they would have said, thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. She writes me back. She goes, I thought I was doing really well here, but I guess I'm not. You're not happy with me.
It's a culture thing.
Yeah,
And,
it was like talking to a girlfriend.
bro. And I think what it comes down to is that, you know, building businesses is filled with managing people, and it's just so messy, dude. You know, and I recently had to fire one of my top people too, and I wasn't happy to do it, but he was just a low performer, and it just had to be done, and I just And so I feel you on that, man. It's like you try one way, another, and it's like you can't make them all happy.
But I'm happy you're in this VA game because I spend 7 days a week working with my VA. So like that's
you interact with them a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they're kind of become like family, or like people. You see them more than your fucking family.
Yeah,
you speak my language.
Way more because I'm in the Airbnb business. So it's 7 days a week.
Yeah.
24 hours a day, whether it's 9 a.m. or 1 a.m., there's an issue that my VAs have to take care of.
And where your property's at?
California, Tennessee, and Seattle.
Okay.
Yeah, Seattle, Washington. So. Cool, man. So you got the VA company. You're still doing
the flipping
and holding as well.
Yep.
Buying and flipping. Anything else you're working on?
I think its focus is just LA, and I still travel back and forth between Mexico and here, and so I get to that.
So what's the next step for you?
I think it's just coming back stronger and better than before here in LA.
Okay.
And then once I
in terms of what, flipping?
Well, I also host events here in LA for networking, real estate.
Okay. How can we hear more about that?
Well, just follow me on Instagram and all that, because I'll be announcing some of that, and we'll be doing more of that, because I used to host a meetup like every quarter at least with like 100, 200 people. Kind of like the event we met in San Diego. And so I love putting those events together.
We met at Rich Summers.
Rich Summers event.
Shout out to Rich Summers.
Shout out to Rich Summers.
Yeah.
Amazing
He's a
dude
cool
in the
guy.
community he's building. And so I have this community here in LA called the Deal Makers that we built out. And so we'll be doing the events again there. I'm excited about that. And just getting back to basics, really, for me. And then growing that real estate, that VA company. And then we'll see where that takes me. But I think right now the focus is LA, Philippine holdings properties, and then coming back from this kind of disaster I did with Phoenix. But I know I'll be stronger, and I learned a lot. And then just kind of living, eventually be able to kind of be more, I think, independent, location independent, like you. But I think it's going to take another year or two kind of rebuilding that, and then I can maybe take more time to travel.
So if you can give like one piece of advice right now to somebody who wants to get into flipping, or like, what else would you call it? Would you call it?
I think you're not. Real estate acquisitions is what I call it. People just flipping is a strategy, because I will sometimes not have to fix up a house and sell it for a huge profit. Sometimes I hold the property because I think it'll be a phenomenal Airbnb, or I think it'll just be a great long-term rental. So I think for me, it's real estate acquisitions is really the business. Yeah.
So next time we have to talk about arbitrage. Your
I'm down.
World in arbitrage. I want to talk about that. But if you can give a piece of advice right now for somebody making money in real estate, and something that you did, the things that you talked about, what would it be for 2025, 2020, 2026?
Well, I think it's a focus on what has proven for yourself to work, and double down on your strengths, delegate the things that you don't do excellent. And that could be, doesn't necessarily have to mean you're bringing on employees or any of that, but just that you're focusing 80% of your time and effort and energy into things that you're naturally gifted at, that you're strong suited, things like that. And every time that I do that within my life and career, it always ends up being very profitable.
Cool, man. So delegate what you are not good at or you don't want to do. You can have people do it at a pretty good competitive price at VAs.
Exactly.
And then are there any like markets that people should be like looking at?
Well, I think every market has its way of making money. For example, LA is great for flipping because there's, you can force appreciation, and prices are high, and you can make those spreads. But it's not the best for being a landlord and like keeping property and cash flowing, because it's very tenant friendly. And so I think it just depends on your market, but just focus on being around other people that are having success within your market, your niche, because there's riches and niches, as they say. I think there's a reason they say that. And my niche has been LA County. Every time I've gone outside of the county and outside of the strategy of like single family, small multifamily, I've gotten into trouble. So I think you just like lock in on what you do great and don't get distracted by all these other things that may be lucrative, but you've already proven to be, this for you to work. Then just lock in.
Are there deals right now to be had even in this market?
Absolutely, yeah.
Big-time
So
deals?
all this time that I've kind of been focusing on this,
Yeah.
finishing this Phoenix deal, I've now started to do research and that I'm implementing, and that's why I came up with the ADU stuff, because I seen 2 years ago when I was more active in acquisitions and I was buying 20 houses a year, that wasn't happening so quickly. It took 18 months to do an ADU. Now people are doing it in
So
6
ADU
months.
is the play right now.
Well, yeah, because the puck is constantly changing based on the environment and the niche, that market. And
I want to
so
do an ADU in San Clemente, actually. I have a triplex in San Clemente.
there you go.
With a big
and that
backyard.
you could add ADUs to small multifamily and single family houses, and they're doing them much faster. That's the thing, is that I'm seeing what before it took
For LA.
18 months. Yes, in the city
LA
of LA,
County.
before it was 18 months.
Or
Now you
California.
can do 6 months.
Yeah.
That's a big difference. And then, yes, the construction cost has gone up a little bit, but it's a good play right now, ADU.
How can we reach out to you? Instagram or what?
So just people, Alex Camacho TV
Alex Camacho.
is my handle on Instagram. It's my main feed there. Or I do have a YouTube channel. I have a ton of stuff on there.
What's your YouTube channel?
It's same Alex Camacho
Okay.
TV. And so just reach out if there's anything I can do for you, because I love all things real estate, mindset, lifestyle.
And our viewers, if they have like a question or something, you'll answer it free of
Either me or
charge.
one of my assistants. I'm in the DMs all the time. I respond in voice all the time. A lot of times in my voice, like, hey, what's up? Let's talk. Let's connect.
Oh,
Yeah.
we appreciate that, man. Thank you so much.
All right, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Great meeting you,
Yeah.
brother. All right, good seeing you. Salud. To making money.
Making money.
The David Golshan Podcast.